Hi guys, this is the number 4 video on Chinese EV production. I think I'm gonna wrap up. So I'm come to a few conclusions. We talked about the advantages, the strengths. We shoot down a few misses, and then Chinese advantage and disadvantage, weakness and vulnerability. And now it's time to come to the end. I have to emphasize in this that continue with last time that China and Chinese has many uh, disadvantages or weaknesses or vulnerability. In a way, I think we may call the country a giant with a feet of clay. Just look at the history that China used to be number one in the world, right? And now the only difference is that back then we didn't have a U.S. or the U.S. Didn't take off yet. But now they look at China back in the history. China basically from going the GDP going from number one in the world down to less than 5% of the world GDP under Mao Zedong. So this is such a tragedy. So you can see that this could happen. There are many disadvantages, vulnerabilities. Like I said, one is that it's very hard, very difficult for Chinese to blend in the world culture. China will more like a cultural island. Number two is that the Chinese are famous for infight. You may sit there saying, yeah, that's nothing, the infight is just the competition. No, there's a difference between competition and the infight. The competition, look at the US. The US people compete with each other, but they try to help each other. They try to make the entire cake bigger, right? And but Chinese, the competition means that instead of making the cake bigger, they try to take a piece of a pie from each other's tray to their own tray. That's why the situation can be very bad. And that's why the state, the government plays such a important role because government act like a father figures. So they try to put the Chinese people together, and then so instead of reduce, we're not completely eliminate the infight, but reduce it to a great extent. So that's another weakness or vulnerability. Number three is the Chinese very deep hierarchy of value. So basically, in other words, put it simply, that the Chinese look down each other based on the your hometown, based on your education, based on your gender and age, everything. So in that way, unlike the U.S., that this kind of thing are not under control. They're actually openly rampant. So that's another thing to make the Chinese very weak. Um, and then probably the biggest vulnerability is intergenerational relationship. In China, the parents and basically they literally often act as the liability for the young people. Okay, so they discourage risk taking, they discourage standing out, they only emphasize in the stability. Um, the gain, personal gains at other people's cost. So that's what they make this a bad culture to, sustain over generations. So we expect a very little intergeneration progress. Okay, so that's we're just a list a few things that make China vulnerable. But however, I just want to say this: right now, Biden and Trump both they actually make China's Xi Jinping at the best spot. Why? Because by you know launching or initiating trade and tech wars, and Xi Jinping basically it's now able to say that I'm defending the free trade. I'm fighting for the global south. Okay, so give him a very easy excuse. Because I remember Margaret Thatcher of UK was once said that don't worry about China because they have no value. Now there's a value. Its value, it's a valid, legitimate value thrown out by the Washington. Okay, so Xi Jinping can actually acting like that. Okay, so I'm not saying China actually did play a positive role because you know, unlike the U.S., basically U.S. left hand is fighting the right hand of the U.S. You know, it's like what is the name? Spanish guy, Don Quixote, Don Quixote, Don Quixote Kyoto. Yeah, I can pronounce that. It's basically a classic novel of from Spain, and the guy was fighting the windmill. You know, now the U.S. is doing the same thing like Don Quixote did, fighting the windmill. Uh, you basically put it against, the free trade, free competition. Um, Except the difference is that Don Quixote was fighting a windmill that's set up, established by somebody else. But in the U.S. case, is they acting as like a Don Quixote and fighting the windmill that is also established by the U.S. So the U.S. is fighting U.S. So that's what they make it that the Beijing at a very advantageous position. The other thing big is that China, Beijing has been trying to gain independence, technology independence, right? But now it's not easy to mobilize people to work for the same goal, right? But now the U.S. helped them. The Washington sent them basically give the very natural excuse for people to mobilize. So the Xi Jinping will say, yes, we have to unite it. We have to form a united front to fight against the U.S. We have to gain the technical independence. So the message I want to send, like I said, like I did the last time, is that the U.S. should really think again to realize that the biggest problem is actually created left hand fighting right hand. It's from domestic, not from any outsiders, not China. It's actually from internal thing. Okay, and if you want looking for excuse, yes, that's easy. China's an easy target. It's huge. It's big. It's growing fast. It's about to overtake. But again, the message I wanted to send here is that, it's very likely or it's likely that for China to, someday slow down significantly. Let's hope China not collapse because that's not good for the world, not good for anybody. So we want China grow. Regardless, I'm from China, I'm Chinese, but regardless, the whole world should hope that China do not collapse, keep growing and contributing to the world economy. So that's the overall message. In terms of a global power structure, we have two models basically. One is a unipolar. Basically, the U.S. is the only superpower, and another is multipolar. That there's more than contenders, more challengers. There are advantages and disadvantages for each. For unipolar, it's faster reacting. There's a very little chance of a big fight between a major power, right? And then, but disadvantages could be abuse of power, could be those kind of other things. So if obviously the U.S. wants to keep the unipolar because the U.S. has proven itself to be very sensitive to anybody trying to overtake it. They actually you could say that the country is oversensitive to that. Even though there's some advantages for the multipolar. Uh, meaning that it's good for some other people to challenge that and then to raise the questions. Otherwise, we don't have an international check and balance, which is very, very important, right? And then, right now, I don't believe that any model is without resentment. There will be, under each system, there will be always resentment. But the difference is that with the multipolar polar system, it's better representing the diverse interest. Okay, so that's why let's stop here.